GB News is Britain's election channel.
It's Saturday night and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes along with Albie Amancona, Fleur Meston, Ben Leo and Benjamin Butterworth. Tonight on the show...
It's not all doom and gloom for the Tories after the disappointing local election results.
The dangers of Stella Creasy's extreme abortion amendments.
Tik Tok terrors are turning society upside down.
The unemployed should get off the sofa and scrub Britain clean.
And we should be afraid of Muslim and Christian ideologues invading our politics.
It's 6 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Welcome to the Saturday 5. We're all set for our local election results special. In the red corner, basking in the glow of huge election gains for Labour, it's the man who's so woke it's a wonder he sleeps, Benjamin Butterworth. In the blue corner, trying to find some gloom among the wreckage, it's Albie, Rishi can still win this, Amancona. And in the spoiled ballot, I couldn't give a fig about any of them, it's the one and only Ben Leo. Trying to bring a bit of sanity to proceedings and making her debut on the show, I've finally got another Durham dynamo in the form of Fleur Meston. And of course, we want to know your views as well. Send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget, all your questions, they need to come in thick and fast for our Ask the Five segment, where you can ask us anything. But before we start tearing each other apart, it's your Saturday night news with Sam Francis.
Darren, thank you, and very good evening to you. It's just gone 6 o'clock, and we'll start with the latest developments in the local elections and to London, where Labour's Sadiq Khan has won there for a historic third term. This was the moment, though, that he was heckled and booed as he stepped up to start his acceptance speech.
Thank you, London. Khan killed London! Khan killed London!
Well, the Labour candidate claimed almost 44% of the vote in London and over 275,000 more votes than his Conservative rival Susan Hall. During the contest, he has been criticised for his expansion of the capital's ultra-low emission zone and rising crime rates. But Mr Khan says he is keeping positive.
It's Londoners who inspire me every day to continue our mission of building a fairer, safer and greener London, and in what I hope will be a year of great change. A future Labour government led by Keir Starmer working with us in City Hall will mean we can go much further and accomplish so much more.
Well, Labour's also celebrating successes in Liverpool, in South Yorkshire and West Yorkshire. In Greater Manchester too, where Andy Burnham has been re-elected, he picked up just over 63% of the vote there and says he'll always give his best to the job.
I'm overwhelmed. To have so many people prepared to put their trust in me is overwhelming, it's humbling. And I recognise that people who vote for other parties at a general election have lent me their support. And it's why I will be very, very rigid in taking a place first rather than a party first approach. It seems to me that's what the role of the mayor is all about, bringing people together, you know, get everybody pulling in the same direction for a great city region like this one. And that's what I will be doing.
Andy Burnham there speaking earlier this afternoon. Well, here's a look at the gains and losses this afternoon in the local elections across England. If you're watching on TV, you can see here those latest results. Labour now gaining control of 8 councils, up to a total of 50. And the Liberal Democrats have won more council seats overall than the Conservatives. Meanwhile, in the West Midlands, a recount has been ordered. In other news, the family of Daniel Angerin say they are devastated after he was killed walking to school in London on Tuesday. The 14-year-old, who's been described as loving and precious, was attacked by a man with a sword in Hainault. 4 other people, including 2 police officers, were also injured in that attack. Marcos Monzo, a Spanish-Brazilian dual national, was charged with murdering the teenager and appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court on Thursday. We've heard today that tens of thousands of homes in East Sussex are still without water, and that will last until at least tomorrow after a pipe burst. Southern Water says disruption in the St Leonards-on-Sea area and Hastings started on Thursday. The firm, though, insists it is working tirelessly to get supplies back and running, but residents say it's been disastrous. Dozens of migrants in 2 small boats have crossed the channel today. Footage captured the moment that a French vessel followed the boats until reaching English waters. The passengers on board, most of them men, were taken to a British Border Force vessel off the coast of Dover. It brings the total number of people arriving in the UK via the channel so far this year to now more than 8,300. And finally, pro-Palestinian students are continuing their protests at universities across the UK. It follows violent demonstrations at some campuses in the US. Sit-in camps and anti-Israel banners have been set up at some universities to protest Israel's war against Hamas. Students in Bristol, in Leeds, Manchester, Newcastle and in Sheffield are currently camping out in tents outside their campus buildings. Those are the headlines. I'll be back at 7 o'clock. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for a very lively 2 hours. Let's crack on with tonight's first debate. All right, which rapscallion wants to lead us off tonight?
Well, Darren, it's me. And I'm here to say that it's not all doom and gloom for the Tories after a set of particularly bruising local election results. Now, it is absolutely for sure that there'll be many Tories, many Tory activists up and down the country licking their wounds after a particularly wounding set of local election results. But I'm here to say that it's not actually as bad as it looks. Because if we look at the votes extrapolated onto the national picture, it actually shows just a 10 or 11% lead for the Labour Party. If we look at what's happened in London, Susan Hall lost to Sadiq Khan, but actually by a much smaller margin than what the national polling picture says. So could the polls actually be wrong? And could the race for the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom actually be much tighter than we initially thought? Benjamin Butterworth. What do you make of this? Because polls nationally are putting the Labour Party 20-plus points ahead of the Conservative Party. But if we look at what's happened in the local elections, yes, the Tories have lost hundreds of councillors, that's absolutely true. But if we look at the actual margin between them, it's about 10 or 11%. So much closer than we thought initially.
You know, God loves a trier, so good on you. You've made the effort. Yeah, I was reading today, actually, that in 1996, when the Tories had terrible results, the Tory line was, oh, the public don't really like Tony Blair. You're hearing a lot of the same things about Keir Starmer. It's just trying to excuse it. Now, look, the facts of this is, as Professor Sir John Curtis, the oracle of psephology, always says, local elections are actually quite hard to copy and paste onto national ones. So if you look at the results, if it's 10 or 11% by the end of counting, as it will be later today or maybe tomorrow, then that would mean it's a bigger margin than we saw in last year's local elections. And if you look at where the seats, where the wards have shifted, they're very well targeted. So you've got Redditch, you've got Rushmore, you've got Milton Keynes. What you're seeing is middle-class areas, Conservative areas, and most of all, Leave voting areas having the biggest shifts from Tory to Labour. And so if you actually put that onto a general election, I think you would, you know, it still looks very positive for the Labour Party.
I just want to get up some footage earlier on from Sadiq Khan's victory speech here in London, where he was actually heckled as he was giving his victory speech. We're going to get those images for you right now.
It's Londoners who inspire me every day to continue our mission of building a fairer, safer and greener London. And in what I hope will be a year of great change, a future Labour government led by Keir Starmer working with us in City Hall.
So there was an actual heckling that went on. I believe it's from the Britain First party, which actually got fewer votes in the London mayoral election than Count Binface, who we saw behind Sadiq Khan there. I mean, what do you make, Darren, of Britain First allegedly heckling Sadiq Khan?
Well, I mean, I don't really care who's doing it. I can't. We'll just see the actual heckle because we didn't have it in that video.
Go and kill London! Go and kill London!
So, I mean, you say that's Britain. I don't know if that's Britain First. Is it Britain First?
Well, he's got the rosette on, so you assume so.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't care who's heckling him. I just know that I would do exactly the same thing in that scenario.
You would have heckled Sadiq Khan
Oh, I
at
absolutely
that speech.
would have, yeah.
Why?
I think that man is a divisive disgrace to this nation.
But do you not think in a democratic society, if someone has won the popular vote, then
In a
that's what
democratic
happens?
society, I'm free to tell that man what a loathsome creature I think he is.
And what do you think if it is Britain First that's heckled him?
I don't care who it is.
I don't think it matters who it is, Albie. I mean, it's Britain First. You'd find plenty of non-Britain First people who would also heckle Sadiq Khan.
Would they have heckled if Susan Hall won?
Sorry?
Would they have heckled if Susan Hall won?
The lefties would have done.
Probably not.
Definitely.
No, I mean, look, you know...
His lot was saying that the fascists and racists were voting for Susan Hall. West Street and tweeted something to
the thing about free and fair democratic elections is that when you stand up and get the results, that's the consequence of the people. And so someone who's trying to heckle or shout, regardless of the reason or targeted at whom, what they're trying to do is distort their voice. You know, the people have voted for Sadiq Khan with a swing to the Labour Party.
Fleur, are you enjoying the carnage?
Well, I don't actually live in London right now, but I spend so much time here. And I must say, I am a big one for complaining about the state of London. I mean...
Do you feel safe in London?
No, I don't. If I have jewellery on and I'm on the tube, I'll hide it. If you look on the BBC News page, which is Crime in London this week, it's just, like, a majority of the stories of violent attacks, stabbings...
I mean, just to read some of Sadiq Khan's record here, theft is up 31%, robbery is up 58%, sexual offences up 43%. He's a complete failure, Benjamin Butterworth, and yet you, I imagine, voted for Sadiq Khan, rewarding his failure.
Who did you vote for?
Oh, it's a secret ballot, you see. I mean, look, you know, I do feel sorry for Count Binface, because he spent all those years trying to be the comedy candidate and then Susan Hall turned up. So it must be so frustrated because...
But you're rewarding Sadiq Khan's failure, Ben.
You know, what a trash can she was of a candidate. You know, she is someone who I do think was supported by racists and white supremacists.
Oh, for God's sake.
She is someone that endorsed Donald Trump, that opposed Brexit. Nothing in common with Londoners. And on the question of crime, I think not sacking 20,000 police officers and shutting a great many police stations in London would probably not have helped the crime numbers.
Sadiq Khan is not responsible for anything which we've seen in terms of crime happen in London since he became the Mayor of London. Nothing to do with him.
I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying
so what are you saying?
What I'm saying is that when you sack thousands of police officers and then only very recently hire under-experienced officers, when you close the police stations, you know, Theresa May and the Tories defunded the police. I don't think you should defund the police.
What about over 1,000 nightlife venues have closed since Sadiq Khan was last elected as Mayor of London? He's made just 2.8% progress towards a 2026 housing target, and yet you voted for him.
And
crucially, can I just say, like, exactly, crucially, stop and search is down 44% because he doesn't want to do it. He thinks it's racist. What happens? Knife crime goes up and kids die on our streets.
That's what you voted for.
So, ultimately, you have to take responsibility for that.
Again, actually, the same person that defunded the police also cut down massively on stop and search, and that's Theresa May. She was largely against stop and search. But look, the fact is that, you know, I think the Tories, what you're doing here is saying the voters are wrong, and no party wins an election with that strategy. There has been a swing towards the Labour Party from the Tories.
You just said the voters are racist.
No, I said that people that believe that will have liked Susan Hall, and I stand by what Wes Streeting, the Shadow Health Secretary, said.
I think that was an
But the fact is that, you know, I will say this in caveat to Sadiq Khan, he is underpolling where Labour generally is. I don't think he's personally popular, and I do think, and this is why I think Tories are so pathetic in this election, I do think Sadiq Khan is beatable, and most Labour Party activists and staff in London know that.
I've always said on this show that London, I've been going to London since I was a small kid, regularly week after week for Arsenal matches, for different things since I was 9, 10, 11. I spent a lot of time in London. I don't live here, thankfully. But London has gone downhill significantly over the past 10 years, 20 years. And if people want to vote for Sadiq Khan and continue the norm, that's fine. Good luck to you. I don't really care because I don't live here. I live in a much nicer part of the UK. But if you want to vote for that guy and you're happy with the status quo, good luck to you. I'm not going to get too excited.
How long will it be isolated to London for? That's the problem.
Well, exactly, yeah, that's the risk.
Right, OK, we're going to have to move that one on, but Rishi Sunak assures me down the line that your fiver's in the post.
Oh, thank you.
Crucially, I want to know how your party, the Lib Dems, got on, Albi. Your second biggest council seats.
I think they did better than the Reform Party.
Also, I'm sorry, but your fiver won't buy anything because of the inflation.
All right. I'm going to go next, and I want to discuss this new teenage TikTok terror that's in town. It's gone from Mizzy to someone called Musa Raza, the teenage TikTok provocateur with a penchant for pushing the boundaries and testing the patience of everybody and the authority. From Buckingham Palace to number 10 Downing Street, he's been making a name for himself by being a prankster. Have a watch of this.
I don't know his name.
Look, we've got a real problem on our hands. These kids wanting to actually go viral on TikTok and other apps to actually get the price of fame. I wonder, how do we actually ensure that these kids think the price of fame, of achieving that viral sensation, is actually higher than they're willing to pay? You've got kids, Ben Leo. Are you worried that your little ones are going to be trying to get TikTok fame by shoving a police horse or whatever it is, a guard, a member of the King's Guard?
I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I'd like to think that they would never get to that point because I've brought them up properly. I blame the sole blame is on the parents, because these are the people that nurture and look after these children from a young age. They spend the most amount of time with them, and they are a product of their environment, and it's the parents' fault, I'm afraid.
But do you not think by the time you're as old as that person, teenager,
19,
that 19, so an adult, that you are responsible for your own actions, and actually you can have the best upbringing in the world, and there are still people that mess up.
That kid is completely responsible for his actions, yes, but he's been brought up in the years prior by parents who probably didn't discipline him properly, didn't say no to him. If that was my kid, if that was Jude when he becomes 15, 16, he'd get a clip round the ear and he wouldn't hear the end of it. I'd like to think, maybe I'll eat my words in 10, 15 years, but I'd like to think that my kids would never get to that point, because hopefully I've done a good enough job.
You're younger. How old are you again?
24.
You're 24, so you're younger than everyone here by some margin.
I'm 18 next week.
But I wonder, do you recognise that this is a problem? Is this a generational thing, do you think, this sort of desire for likes and follows?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, TikTok came about in the years just before lockdown, and I think everyone being at home and looking for that entertainment on their phone, it blew up.
Yeah.
And there are so many teenagers who will just do anything. I mean, Mizzy was terrible.
Yes.
He's been...
Apparently he's totally changed now. He's a changed man. And if that is the case, I wish him well. But how do we make these kids...
But do you know what? It's another part of living in London. If you choose to live in a hellhole like London, you're choosing for your children to be brought up... Let me finish my point, please. You're choosing for your children to be brought up with riffraff like this kid.
But there are
the only riffraff on this panel, Ben Leo, is you. Children across the country do things to play up to cameras and and try and do things which are bad. And actually, one thing I will say is the police handled that little rascal in exactly the right way. And that's what
about
we need.
time as well.
We need tough policing. This isn't just something which happens in London. So don't just paint this as a London problem. This happens down on the South Coast too. It happens up in Durham. It happens all across the United Kingdom.
Not really. There's a bigger congregation of scallywags in London than there is elsewhere. It's a culture thing.
I've never seen this in Durham, to be honest.
No. Exactly, there you go.
Benjamin, you like London. Is it a problem?
No, I don't think this is. I really don't think this is a geographical problem at all. But I think there is a real problem here because, you know, you might get examples of alleged criminality, which are clearly the most serious end of it. But I think what you've got with the internet, with TikTok, with YouTube, is a sort of subverting of social norms being monetised.
Yes.
So there is serious money to be made from this. It is a proper career. It's a lot better paid than many traditional careers if you're good at it. And you see so many examples where people go up to you know, strangers in a supermarket or in the street and say something crazy, or they ask what we would consider inappropriate questions, you know, maybe something about someone's romantic life, like an old person. You see so many examples of what is just poor, incredibly poor way to behave.
Well, it was more serious than that with the Mizzy, though, because he was dogs, he was walking into people's homes.
Exactly, and that's the extreme end. But I think these social media platforms are turning social norms upside down because there's a profit in it, and I think that's quite risky.
Does anyone remember happy slapping as a phenomenon?
Yes.
How did we actually get rid of that? Because I don't hear about that
I think it just fizzled out, but I just wonder how much of this we're just seeing more of because of social media versus people used to play pranks, you know, throughout history, and actually this is just something which young people have always done, but now we see it because of social media.
That's the point I'm making. Like, kids have always been silly or inappropriate, right? But they would get a clip round the ear or whatever. Yeah. It wouldn't benefit them. And also, but now you have a situation where you can behave like that, and it benefits you. It makes you money. And I think that's why it's dangerous.
But that goes back to the parenting. A, you're letting kids access social media from a young age where they're desperate to get their hands on it. And B, you're not teaching them that money isn't the be-all and end-all.
Fleur, do you agree that actually there should be age limits on these things, that actually you shouldn't be able to access smartphones even until you're a certain age? What's the Miriam, Kate? 16?
16, yeah. Well, I mean, as a parent, I would definitely attempt to put those limits on for my kids, but I think making it illegal is pointless because I was on Twitter at 10 to tweet about Justin Bieber and how much I loved him. But obviously...
She still does today.
I still do.
We all do. Fleur, we all do.
And I just think kids can bypass these things so easily. I mean, vapes were meant to just be for over 18s.
That's
and
true.
You've got... There was a story that there's 4-year-olds in hospital with lung problems. So I don't really see much point in putting legislation.
Again, that's the parents' fault. What kind of
So this is a societal issue, isn't it? This is poor parenting. This is a lack of people taking personal responsibility for their offspring being complete terrors. I was going to say something else there, but I don't think Ofcom would like that. And, you know, there is a whole host of issues that we've got that are getting way worse. I mean, Albie, you've spoken very eloquently in the past about the way in which a sort of hands-off approach to parenting is responsible in large parts for the sort of knife crime epidemic that we're seeing. They're all linked,
I think they are all linked. I do think a lot of society's ills nowadays can be put at the foot of poor parenting. And I just worry that we've got to a point where we're too scared to say too many people are bad parents.
Okie doke. Right, we're going to have to leave that one there, folks, but let me know what you think. Still to come tonight, Ben Leo's going to be a pound shop Jeremy Kyle and ask the unemployed to scrub Britain clean. And what do we think about Stella Creasy's plan to decriminalise abortion? But next, George Galloway stands accused of stoking racial division. Is there any place for religion within the political sphere? Let me know what you think. You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Between 1955 and 1989, an average of 55 nuclear tests were conducted across the globe each year. More than 30,000 young British and Commonwealth servicemen served at British test locations in Australia and the Pacific Ocean. But in the years since, those who were involved say they've been ignored and lied to about their exposure to radiation. For decades, Lab Rats International has represented the millions across the world exposed to fallout from the testing programmes and the families who still suffer today from illness and deformities. Last year, the government unveiled the Nuclear Test Medal, recognising the military, civilian and overseas staff and personnel who participated in Britain's nuclear testing programme in the 1950s. But for Lab Rats founder Alan Owen, whose own father was a nuclear test veteran, the work is only just beginning. In September, they launched a legal challenge to the Ministry of Defence to provide the test veterans full medical records, which they say they've been denied access to.
We sit in this bubble as the nuclear test veteran community, fighting against the establishment. And they will say, you know, ministers will go in Parliament and say, all you've got to do is apply for your medical records and they'll give them to you. You know, it just doesn't happen. It's not a reality. They're not there to as easy, as accessible as just applying. They will fight you all the way. They will delay it.
In response, a government spokesperson said, "We are grateful to all service personnel who participated in the British nuclear testing programme, which is why we have formally recognised them with an official medal. Nuclear test veterans who believe they have suffered ill health due to service have the existing and long-standing right to apply for no-fault compensation under the War Pensions Scheme. The fight for these veterans and their families lives on, because thousands who came before never got the recognition and justice for their service."
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country.
That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your emails about tonight's topics and for writing on gbnewsreports.com/your say. Diana says, Ben, which Ben? I can't see how this is free and fair. I'm incredulous. Failure is rewarded.
Yeah, but that's an opinion on the result of London's election. But there's no question, Mark, that it was free and fair. And, you know, it must be best part of 2 million votes cast.
Rose-tinted glasses. And Keith says, GB News, get over yourself. The people of London have voted for Sadiq Khan. Rishi Sunak is based in Yorkshire and Labour even won there. Well, that's I'll be told. And Chris says, the 5 of you appear normal with the ability to reason and debate sensibly. How drunk are you? But generally, we find employing young folk is a disaster. Oh, it's a serious point. Graduates are just dumb individuals. I mean, that's serious.
I'm not dumb.
Well, now, though, it's time for our next debate. Who's up next?
Regrettably, for the viewers, it's me. This week, we have and what a long week this has been in politics, right? At the start of it, we had the First Minister of Scotland, Humza Yousaf, stepping down, which feels like months ago, quite frankly. And we had this question about the SNP politician, Kate Forbes, who's been heavily criticised because of her Christian beliefs influencing her politics. She doesn't believe in same-sex marriage. She doesn't believe in sex before marriage. And then we had an extraordinary interview from the recently elected Rochdale MP, George Galloway, in which he criticises gay relationships being known in school. Let's take a look.
My other 2 school children are taught in England things that I don't want them to be taught, and at an age I don't want to be taught. That gay relationships are exactly the same and as normal as a mum, a dad, and kids.
Now, I think it's pretty outrageous and definitely outdated to think that people shouldn't know that gay relationships exist. I mean, I know that George Galloway is very committed to his wife. The first one, the second one, the third one, and now the 4th one. I always find it odd when you get these people that are in happy marriages, many happy marriages in his case, who say they oppose the rights of same-sex marriage. You know, it seems ridiculous when most of them have been having the same sex for decades. And so the question I want to ask is it valid if he's doing that because his voters are largely Muslim, which are more conservative, and Kate Forbes is doing it because it's her sincerely held Christian belief? Is that good enough to shape how they run countries? Now, Darren, you're committed and religious. What do you make of this?
Well, look, I think the comparison between Galloway and what he's managing to do to stoke divisions and religious sectarianism within Britain is completely... You cannot compare that with Kate Forbes. Kate Forbes saying, oh, I'm anti-abortion, right? She said that. Did she say that she would legislate in that way? No, she wouldn't. I just think you're
But I don't think George has said he'd
underplaying.
legislate in that way either.
Well, he certainly wants to elect a hell of a lot of Muslims who I assume don't share the views of the current load of politicians on things like abortion, for example. I doubt they'll be with Stella Creasy on decriminalising abortion, which we'll get onto later on. But I think you underplay it, Benjamin, and I wanted to play 2 clips from today just to really highlight that point and make clear that I think you're wrong to highlight the Christianity point, because I don't think that's the problem here.
Raise the voice of Palestine! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
This is a clear message this Starmer. Bradford has rejected Labour. It's rejected Zionism. And this is a message to you, Naz Shah and Imran Hussein. We are coming for you in the general election. Zionism.
So Labour enabled people like that man. Tony Blair said, come on, come all. And people like that are now entrenched and emboldened. And that's much more serious than anything Kate Forbes says as a Christian.
I mean, look, first of all, those people hate the Labour Party. They certainly hate Keir Starmer. That's evident in some of the local election results. George Galloway said he was going to sweep Rochdale in the council elections. Labour won 44 seats and he won 2. So I don't think they're anything like as dangerous as they expected. But look, let me say this, and most people on the left won't say this, but radical Islam and people whose interpretation of Islam is to say that being gay is wrong and who take it on themselves to appoint themselves as community leaders and then try and intimidate teachers like in Batley or in Birmingham is not acceptable. And it frustrates me, and here's where you might disagree, because you get these people who will say that it's unacceptable that won't say it's unacceptable when a Muslim leader comes out with homophobic remarks, but they will accept it when a Christian does because it's culturally more acceptable.
Benjamin, sorry.
I think it's wrong for both of them.
You support this. You enable this. You support open borders and uncontrolled mass migration. And
hang on, that's not the question.
Let me finish. No, let me finish.
Well, it's not.
And yet you come on the show week after week and you complain, rightly, about anti-Jewish chants at Palestine marches. You complain about Muslims or George Galloway talking about homosexual relationships. Yet you support these kind of people coming into our society and changing the fabric of it. So look, which way do you want it?
OK, well, hang on. First of all, I have lots of Muslim friends who don't take those views. It's not homogenous.
But many of them do.
But look, you know, Fleur, I think you're quite socially conservative. Well, we've not got all night. I know you're on air 10 hours a day, but Fleur isn't. But I just have. Right, Fleur, do you think it's valid for someone to bring their religious views into their political decisions?
Well, I was actually going to ask you, do you think that we should only have secular politicians?
I think the idea that you justify policies that affect the masses based on your religious beliefs is wrong.
But we all have a right to our own beliefs and our own opinions, whether that's religion or comes from somewhere else, like liberalism or something like that. So it would be dishonest to yourself if you were elected when people know that you're a Christian or know that you're a Muslim and you don't act on your own beliefs. That's just dishonest and anti-democratic.
What do you think, Albie?
I do not think that your religion should mean that you vote against extending the right of marriage or extending the right of adoption to a particular group of people. I don't agree with that whatsoever. I completely understand that there are religious people in politics, but there are plenty of religious politicians who would not vote against same-sex marriage, for example. And I just find it interesting that I think for some social conservatives, they feel a lot more comfortable with someone like Kate Forbes or Jacob Rees-Mogg expressing their opinions on abortion or on same-sex marriage. But if it was a Muslim politician, I think they'd probably have an issue with it. And that's where I find the hypocrisy. It's that for one religion, well, because it's culturally understandable in the West, that's fine. But for another religion, because it's not culturally understandable, That's not fun.
I mean, what I would say, though, is that actually there's no getting away from gay relationships these days. I mean, you turn on the telly...
Well, you seem to get away from them easily
enough.
enough.
I do. But you turn on the telly and there's a gay relationship there all the time. I mean, look, you turn on the Saturday 5 and there's enough of them there as well. But anyway, we're going to have to move on because coming up...
Just to be clear, we're not in a relationship.
I did not mean to suggest that at all. Should unemployed people have to pick up litter? Ben Leo's out there with a whip. But next, MP Stella Creasy wants to decriminalise all abortion. Is she right? You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours or so, a bit of a north-south split with the weather cloudy and damp in the north, some clear spells leading to sunshine and showers in the south. So it's all thanks to low pressure dominating the weather pattern through the bank holiday weekend. This area of low pressure giving some longer spells of rain perhaps in the south on Monday, but through the rest of the evening and overnight, very slow changes with our weather. It stays cloudy across the northern half of the UK with outbreaks of rain. A few heavier bursts possible. Clearer south, generally dry, some mist and fog patches forming under light winds, and then by the end of the night this weather system moving into the southwest, and as we go through the day on Sunday it just slowly pushes its way northwards, introducing some showery outbreaks of rain. Through the central swathe of the UK it generally stays dry with some sunny spells, cloudier further north, drier though, but there will be a few heavy showers that develop, particularly across northeast Scotland. Temperatures generally in the range of 16 to 18, but locally 19 or 20 in the best of the sunshine. For bank holiday Monday, a bit of a mixed picture, some showery outbreaks of rain possible across southern counties of England. This trying to break up during the day into sunny spells and showers, and that's the forecast for many parts, sunshine and showers, temperatures lifting generally into the high teens once more. Tuesday into Wednesday, high pressure starts to build in, temperatures start to rise.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christys, this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Your emails have just made Ben Leo spit his water out all over the floor. Steve says, 35 years ago, I worked in London and it was a dump even then. Certain areas you locked yourself in the van when travelling through. Someone used to tell me that going through Brixton, you needed bulletproof glass. David says, the big lie is that there are non-religious individuals. Everyone believes in something. The scientific method should be applied to the no-God hypothesis. I mean, I don't know what your ideology is yourself. Anyway, moving on to our next debate.
Tony Blair is God.
Who wants to go next?
Right, that's me. So Stella Creasy has tabled an amendment to the Criminal Justice Bill, which would make some extreme adjustments to the abortion legislation. This would include sex-selective abortion becoming legal, abortion for any reason up to birth, not having to have two qualified doctors approve your abortion, not having to have a qualified doctor oversee it, and it being able to be happen in any place. So I think that these are very dangerous for women and unborn babies. But
so just before we start, Stella Creasy is the Labour MP who feels the need to bring her baby into Parliament and performatively breastfeed in Parliament, despite the fact she gets paid 90k a year and can probably afford it. Is that the same?
There's a crash in Parliament.
Is that the same MP?
Who tweeted saying that she was very jealous of everyone who was going to staff Christmas parties whilst she had to go and pick up her child from nursery.
Look, I think Stella Creasy has said some very silly things, but I don't recognise the description of what you have said Stella wants to do. My understanding is that Stella Creasy wants to decriminalise abortion up until 24 weeks, which is essentially the current process that we have at the moment, because actually what she argues is that actually with the legislation that we have at the moment, the original law which still criminalises abortion back from 1861, I believe, is actually still on the statute book, and there are exemptions that currently allow women to get an abortion up to 24 weeks. So what Stella Creasy wants to do is just scrap that law from literally
she wants to remove
what's wrong with that? And it's actually that is the current case law in Northern Ireland. She wants to extend that across the UK. So I'm not sure why you'd be against that.
She wants to remove the requirement to get a doctor's approval, right?
Yeah.
So it's abortions for everyone. Don't consult a doctor. If you're pregnant and you don't want it, well, that's what it is.
What you're saying, Kurt, is that they're removing the checks that are necessary to protect. Obviously, there are serious complications. The further along you are, there are serious complications to the mother's health, and you can actually risk life. It goes up by percentage points that are off the scale the longer you leave it.
This is the law in Northern Ireland. Are you saying it's more unsafe to get an abortion in Northern Ireland than in England?
I do say that. Yes, I do say that. Absolutely. And actually, medical groups coming forward saying that we are putting women's health at risk by allowing this to happen, that actually we're going to see women put themselves in really perilous positions if this goes ahead. What's wrong with having it as it is right now? And by the way, we have some of the most, well, actually the most liberal abortion limits in the whole of Europe. And it's not often I compare myself to Europe, or my country to Europe. But I don't see why we need to actually take away the checks that are necessary to protect the woman and actually to ensure that the baby isn't... Imagine if you have half an abortion and you're doing it in your own house after popping a pill.
This happens because pills by post was introduced during lockdown, meant to be a temporary measure, as were many things. And 7% of women who have at-home abortions end up in hospital because not everything has come out. And this is... You know, I've heard testimonies of people that have had them and said it's excruciatingly painful, traumatic.
Very traumatic, I think.
Do you support abortion?
No.
Well, this is my issue with a lot of this debate. Is actually it's not about whether or not we should decriminalise abortion up to 24 weeks. You actually just think we should scrap abortion
That's
completely.
my personal opinion, but what about... But I'm taking a moderate stance here.
You're not.
Well, OK, do you think it's OK to have sex-selective abortion?
I think that women should have the right to do what they want with their bodies without it being policed in a way that men's bodies are.
You think you should have...
No, I don't. But that's
so that's what this wants to introduce?
No, it's not. No, it's
yes,
not.
It is.
It's not. I've read what Stella Creasy... I've read what Stella Creasy said. There was right now, if a woman has a stillbirth, there has to be a criminal investigation. I mean, that is despicable.
Why is it despicable?
There was a 15-year-old girl who suffered a stillbirth, which is a medically and personally deeply difficult thing to experience. And she was subjected to a 1-year investigation by police until they identified that it had been natural.
I'm sorry, it wouldn't have been...
The idea that a teenager who'd got in that terribly difficult situation was then put before the threat of being criminalised is totally wrong. It is not about demedicalising the process. I have a friend who signs off abortions for women, and he has said no on occasion when it's been early in the process and he's thought they're not mentally prepared to make that decision. I think that's fine. What it's saying is that when a woman makes that decision, they don't need a police officer at the door, they need a counsellor and support.
So do you in the same context then, do you think it's wrong and horrible for social services to investigate when a child has bruises on their body, for example?
Yeah, if the parents...
Well, that's completely different.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
to a woman facing police action for having an abortion.
Well,
and I
in
think
that
it
case,
is
a woman
deeply
would face
antiquated that we
investigation.
still have that as the case in this country.
These are checks and balances to ensure all is well and good.
What does a law
You can't
of
claim
1860 being on the
well,
books
there's a
in
reason
20...
it stayed on the statute books.
No. Look, can I just...
We also have the abolition of slavery.
What?
Do you want to bring that back? Should we say, we abolished that back in the 1800s?
Darren.
Should we bring that back, Albie?
Here we go. Yes, let's bring back slaves.
All
Is
right,
that what you wanted me to
well,
say,
it's
Darren?
an old law.
This is just
It's an old
such
law.
a silly level
It's an
of debate.
old law.
Such a silly level of debate.
All old laws must go. All old laws. Let's get rid of them.
But the fact is that...
let's bring
But
him
hang
back,
on.
the protectorate.
You know, when laws about how women's bodies were treated, they weren't allowed to vote for decades until after that. We've clearly moved on substantially.
Yeah, and women haven't called for this, apart from your extremists on your side of the party.
An abortion is a medical and probably mental health decision for that person. It should not be a criminal decision, and I think that is the right way to do it.
24 weeks it shouldn't be. Afterwards, yes.
The idea that someone who has been through hell, who maybe has suffered a stillbirth, then has to sit in a police station and be interrogated is
that's not how it
morally
works.
wrong.
That's
and
not how it works,
it is
Ben.
exactly how
It's
it
not.
works.
They're
That's
not-
one of
they're
the
not
examples that this Labour
treated
MP
off.
gave. And the fact that you claim to believe in a small state but think the state should be able to dictate what a person does with their body is wrong and hypocritical.
I don't believe people should have free will to just terminate children in the womb whenever they fancy.
Well, I'm not surprised you don't, because it's never going to affect you, Ben.
That's right, only 1%.
It'll never affect you. You haven't got kids and you're not a woman, yet you have the biggest voice about it.
We're going to ask Andrea Jenkins MP whether these disastrous local election results spell trouble for Rishi Sunak. But next, should the unemployed be made to pick up litter and do other work within the community? You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
The International Monetary Fund has estimated that Russia will outgrow all advanced economies in 2024. This is in spite of all the sanctions the West has imposed on Russia, in spite of its removal of the SWIFT banking system, in spite of the fact that Germany has almost entirely weaned itself off Russian gas, and in spite of the 50,000 soldiers who have died and the endless resources it has poured into the Ukraine war. So, what are we missing here? Why is Russia going to grow more than the rest of us? Well, it's simple. Russia is willing to make use of its own energy resources to provide abundant supply to its citizens. Increased supply means lower prices, and cheap energy is inextricably linked to economic growth. But since 2008, the United States has grown at twice the rate of the United Kingdom. The big difference is that America has much lower energy prices, while the UK insists on masochistic green policies. But it's no surprise that the Green fanatics in the Scottish government, where they know how to be fanatics, have had to backtrack on their flagship greenhouse gas reduction target. The SNP has committed to reducing Scotland's CO2 emissions by 75% by 2030. Now, the Climate Change Committee has reviewed its policy and advised that the absurd reduction target is out of reach.
Can we accept the CCC's recent re-articulation that this Parliament's interim 2030 target is out of reach? We must now act to chart a course to 2045.
It is time to recognise the truth that net zero by 2050 is unrealistic and unaffordable. It's time we rid ourselves of this foolish and costly idea that will simply make people cold and poor. We need to prioritise cheap energy for Britain's consumers and for companies, for industry, enabling economic growth that will benefit us all.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Your emails are flying in and your messages to gbnews.com/your say. David says, good evening, David. When Benjamin Butterworth said that religion has no place in politics, does he include the woke religion in that analysis? Yeah. Tony Blair's his messiah. And Maggie says, Stella Creasy is so wrong. This means there can be abortion right up to birth for any reason. This means fully formed, viable babies will be killed. Now it's time for our next debate. Up next, it's Ben, and he's got an idea for the unemployed.
Yes, so we know there's 9, maybe 8 million economically inactive people in this country. Lots of people, such as our good friend here, Benjamin Butterworth, who hasn't had a proper job in his life. A great idea in Walsall, the West Midlands, the local council there have said that perhaps these people, whilst they're looking for work, and they're able to, not including those who are incapacitated, of course, should get out and scrub Britain clean, litter picking, mowing public lawns, cleaning graffiti, painting old buildings. I think, guys, this is a great idea to get people off their backsides, off their sofas, stop watching Loose Women.
I love Loose Women, actually.
I know you do. That's why we need to get you out on the streets litter picking. I think it would be a great way to motivate the unemployed to get back into work, get back into society and do something productive for yourself.
Well, you mentioned 8 million inactive, economically inactive. Most of those, I'm afraid, are not young people, are not unemployed. They are in their 50s and 60s and they took a pension payout to retire early. So unless you're going to tell 55-year-olds to go and pick litter, I've got a feeling that won't be very popular.
What about people like you?
Well, look, I mean, the question... Well, look, first of all, I have several jobs. So, and I've worked since I was 16 when I was a cold caller, so I've been even more annoying to the public than being a lefty on GB News. What I would say is that, you know, I think this dehumanises people who come in unemployed. It does not mean they're a scrounger. It doesn't mean they're lazy.
No one's calling them scroungers.
It might well mean that they need help. They might need... If they have long-term sickness, long-term mental health issues, I think the state should help those people.
The state do help them by paying them universal credit. And why is it such an awful idea to say, if you're on universal credit and you're fit and able, go out and do something for your community? Why would you be against
Look how scruffy some of our local towns are. Seaside towns. I live in a seaside town, and infamously in this country, seaside towns are, you know, very neglected. There's all sorts of work that needs doing around my neck of the woods, Benjamin.
I thought you were talking about your neck of the woods being the nicest place in the country.
It's full of nice people, Albie, but not of the London ilk. So we could put high vis on you, Benjamin, give you a litter picker stick, and you can get to work.
Look, I just think it's incredibly condescending. And actually, let's look at the proper question. Would this help someone get a job? Well, no. You know, if they're sat there... you know, picking up your crisp packets, right, from your lunch, then are they actually helping to get a job and to help the economy?
They'd be in the fresh air, out and about, meeting people. Good morning. Hi, Dave. How are you? I've got a great opportunity for you.
And I think, actually, people need a sense of purpose, so a sense of giving back to society that's funding your ability to be unemployed and receive welfare as a safety net. You're giving back to the society that's given you that gift. And I think that's a really important thing that's missing currently from actual society, which is people don't feel any connection or greater sense of self.
Do you think it would actually be successful?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you say to people, say, we will stop your universal credit unless you are contributing to your country, not economically, but by cleaning it up, then, yeah, we would have motivated people, a cleaner country, and it would probably give these people the idea of either, I don't want to be spending my days picking litter and cleaning things, so I want to go and get a job, or, hey, do you know what? I actually like working with people, getting out in the morning, up and doing something.
Yeah,
I'd like to get a job.
That's a really good point. Actually, I would argue, I'm just guessing here, I've got no evidence to back it up, but I'm guessing that a lot of these people who are unemployed probably feel a bit isolated and unsure and unconfident about how to get back into society, how to meet people again. They've probably got stuck in a rut.
So treating them like a criminal, like, you know, like Paris Hilton in an orange jumpsuit. I really don't think that's going to help them, right? You know, you need to give people a sense of humanity, a sense of value, a sense of being worth something.
Welcome back to the community.
A lot of these people that are long-term sick, they don't believe, or long-term unemployed, I should say, they don't believe that they can do it. They need support, not to be dehumanised.
That's what I'm talking about. This is what this kind of scheme would do. You'd encourage people back into society. You'd help them get set up.
You need a push.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I think, a push.
Look, the highest unemployment rate is under 25s, which is your generation. Do you have friends that you think are lazy or this would help?
No, all of my friends are employed. But
she's from Durham. We're all employed.
Yeah, everyone
The pause of not knowing where that was going, but yeah.
We're not down the mines anymore, but there's so many small businesses. I think it's huge in the northeast, which you don't see as much.
But do you think there is? I mean, I'm not saying I think this, but a lot of people would say the younger you get, the lazier people are, the more work shy they are. Do you think there's any truth?
I mean, definitely my generation have a different work ethic. I mean,
they've been infantilised,
yeah,
right?
well, I saw a video about a Gen Z employer who allows her staff to come into the office at 10 a.m, no dress code. If they want to have Netflix film on in the background, that's fine, as long as they're getting the work done. I'm not quite sure how productive that would actually be, but if it works for her company, then...
You've just described Benjamin Butterworth.
I turn up a lot later than 10 a.m.
All right, still to come on the show, Andrea Jenkins MP, Conservative MP. She will kindly join us to give her verdict on the local election results, and I'll be going head-to-head with Albie on whether we should legalise cannabis. You're watching the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours or so, a bit of a north-south split with the weather cloudy and damp in the north, some clear spells leading to sunshine and showers in the south. So it's all thanks to low pressure dominating the weather pattern through the bank holiday weekend. This area of low pressure giving some longer spells of rain perhaps in the south on Monday, but through the rest of the evening and overnight, very slow changes with our weather. It stays cloudy across the northern half of the UK with outbreaks of rain. A few heavier bursts possible. Clearer south, generally dry, some mist and fog patches forming under light winds, and then by the end of the night this weather system moving into the southwest, and as we go through the day on Sunday it just slowly pushes its way northwards, introducing some showery outbreaks of rain. Through the central swathe of the UK it generally stays dry with some sunny spells, cloudier further north. Drier though, but there will be a few heavy showers that develop, particularly across northeast Scotland. Temperatures generally in the range of 16 to 18, but locally 19 or 20 in the best of the sunshine. For bank holiday Monday, a bit of a mixed picture, some showery outbreaks of rain possible across southern counties of England. This trying to break up during the day into sunny spells and showers, and that's the forecast for many parts, sunshine and showers, temperatures lifting generally into the high teens once more. Tuesday into Wednesday, high pressure starts to build in, temperatures start to rise.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
In the studio, the chairman of the Royal Society of St George, that's Nick Dutt. Congratulations on St George's Day.
Thank you very much, and happy St George's Day to you and all the listeners, all the viewers.
What does it mean to you, Nick? What are you going to do today, for instance?
I'm attending an event in London for a society that celebrates St George's Day. But as a society, over the last few days, we've done a number of things. So a number of the branches around the country have held events to celebrate St George's Day.
Dare I say that sort of passed under the radar probably for most people, and they sound like exactly the sort of things we ought to be doing as a country today. Eamon's campaigning for us to have a bank holiday like the Irish do. Eamon would come in on the 17th of March, head to toe, dressed in green, and doesn't understand why we English are so... I think it's self-deprecation, but he thinks it's just sort of, what, snobbery or reticence to...
It's very hard to explain to somebody who's Irish, who celebrates their national day, why people in England don't have the same enthusiasm. That's the thing.
And I struggle with that. I absolutely agree. I think we should celebrate it. We should celebrate what unites us rather than what divides us.
Definitely, yeah.
And I agree. I think, and thanks to your channel, the 10.5 event was broadcast, and we've this year seemed to have a much bigger awareness of St George's Day. But over the last decade or so, there have been certain headwinds that certainly patriotism has been conflated with nationalism. It's made worse now as well because of the underlying trends, shall we say, in universities and schools to push a narrative that undermines all our history, what we've ever done. Now, yes, there are some bad things, but we've done good things. There's some great people.
It's Saturday night and you're back with the Saturday 5. Thank you very much for your company. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Albie Ammon Corner, Fleur Meston, Ben Leo and Benjamin Butterworth. Plenty more to come tonight, including Dame Andrea Jenkins MP on the local election results. She's not going to be holding back. And I'll be going head-to-head with my old pal Albie and trying to show him how ludicrous it would be to legalise cannabis. You must be on the stuff. It's 7 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Plus, in Bunch of Five, new TikTok sensation Kim Jong-un of North Korea. And should we ditch messaging people on dating apps and pick up the phone instead? We're going to find out what Benjamin Butterworth's into. And we'll also be answering your questions in Ask the Five. Send them through to gbnews.com/your say. But before all that, it's your Saturday Night News with Sam Francis.
Darren, thank you very much and good evening to you. It's just after 7 o'clock. Our top story tonight, Sadiq Khan has said it is now time for the Prime Minister to call a general election. That's after he won the London election for a historic third term. This, though, was the moment that he was heckled and booed as he started his acceptance speech.
Thank you, London. Khan killed London! Khan killed London!
Well, Sadiq Khan beat his nearest rival, Conservative candidate Susan Hall, in a contest that's been full of criticism over Mr Khan's decision to expand the capital's ultra-low emission zone. However, Mr Khan insists he's keeping positive.
Who inspire me every day to continue our mission of building a fairer, safer and greener London. And in what I hope will be a year of great change, a future Labour government led by Keir Starmer, working with us in City Hall, will mean we can go much further and accomplish so much more.
Labour's also celebrating successes in Liverpool, in South Yorkshire and in West Yorkshire. In Greater Manchester too, Andy Burnham was re-elected today. He picked up just over 63% of the vote there and said he'll always give his best to the job.
I'm overwhelmed. To have so many people prepared to put their trust in me is overwhelming, it's humbling, and I recognise that people who vote for other parties at a general election have lent me their support, and it's why I will be very, very rigid in taking a place first rather than a party first approach. It seems to me that's what the role of the mayor is all about, bringing people together, get everybody pulling in the same direction for a great city region like this one, and that's what I will be doing.
Let's take a quick look at the results so far in those local elections across England. If you're watching on TV, you can see here the latest figures to us. Labour now gaining control of 8 councils. They've hit 50 in total. The Liberal Democrats, meanwhile, have won more council seats overall than the Conservatives. And in the West Midlands, the mayoral race remains tight for the Conservative candidate Andy Street. And we understand a recount of the ballots is currently underway there. In other news, the family of Daniel Angerin say they are devastated after he was killed while he made his way to school in London on Tuesday. The 14-year-old, who's been described by his family as loving and precious, was attacked by a man with a samurai sword in Hainault. 4 other people, including 2 police officers, were also injured. Marcos Monzo, a Spanish-Brazilian dual national, was charged with murdering the teenager and appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court earlier this week. More than 20 dogs have been seized tonight after police raided a suspected illegal XL bully breeding farm in Sheffield. 16 of the animals are being looked after in police kennels after they were discovered in what officers described as appalling conditions. Sadly, those 6 other dogs were so unwell that they had to be put to sleep. The breed was added to a banned list in October last year following a series of attacks. However, campaigners argue that the ban is unlawful and they've called it irrational. Tens of thousands of homes in East Sussex will remain without water until at least tomorrow after a pipe burst. Southern Water says the disruption in St Leonards-on-Sea and in Hastings started on Thursday. The firm, though, says it is working tirelessly to get supplies back, and residents there say it's been a disaster. Pro-Palestinian students are continuing their protests at university campuses across the UK following violent demonstrations in the US. Sit-in camps and anti-Israel banners have been set up at some universities in protest against Israel's war with Hamas. Students in Bristol, in Leeds, Manchester, Newcastle and in Sheffield are currently camping out in tents at their campus buildings in those protests. And finally, dozens of migrants in 2 small boats have crossed the Channel today. Footage captured the moment that a French vessel followed the boats until reaching English waters. The passengers, most of whom were men, were taken on board a British Border Force vessel off the coast of Dover. It brings the total number of people arriving in the UK so far this year to more than 8,300, a new record for that period. That's the latest from the newsroom for now. For more, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, though, it's back to the Saturday 5.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for yet another very lively hour. Let's crack on with tonight's big interview. And we're returning to this week's local election results. And while there are plenty of ways to look at the numbers, one thing seems to be clear. It's not been a great week for the Tories. Even Albion and Corner admits that. The Conservatives have lost over 400 council seats, while Labour won the Blackpool South by-election on a huge swing of 26%. Time for the Tories to call an election, or maybe even change leader? Well, here to discuss this one is Dame Andrea Jenkins, the Tory MP for Morley and Outwood. Good evening, Andrea. Thank you very much for your company, as ever. Andrea, I want to know your reaction to Andy Street, the vote in the West Midlands. There been a recount for the mayoralty there, and actually we're being told that it's very close and that Andy could indeed lose. Do you think actually this suggests that Rishi Sunak has completely failed?
Look, I think the whole local elections and mayoral elections, the by-election, there was one simple message. The British public are fed up. They couldn't even be bothered to go out and vote. And they're sending a clear message that don't feel that they're being listened to. So there has got to be a major shake-up and major changes, Darren.
Yeah, I mean, do you think, Andrea, I'm going to be blunt, do you think this would have happened if Boris Johnson was still Prime Minister?
No, I mean, Boris had an amazing way of connecting with the public. And this is why I said, actually, on one of your GB News shows yesterday that I would bring Boris back and make sure he's front and centre of the general election campaign. I'd give him a chance to have a seat as well. Because I think it's evident now, as you know, Darren, I was one of the first to put my letters in last November, but colleagues are not shifting on this whatsoever. And so I think that we've got to be pragmatic. We need to actually take the fight now to Labour, because, I mean, we've seen in some of these seats we should have won the North Yorkshire mayoral campaign. And I understand it wasn't the best election campaign, though, but that's by the by. And for Labour to win in seats like this because people are disenfranchised, it's quite frankly, it's frightening. And so I think we need to take the fight back now to Labour, because to me, they are just like the SNP, the two sides of the same coin. And all this fake patriotism of putting flags everywhere and putting flags and old posters of trains, trying to make it romanticize what they are like. But we all know what socialists are like. They're going to bankrupt the country. We know what Starmer's like regarding the EU. We've seen this week what they said, what they will do with illegal migration. And it's a danger now. So I would like to also somehow, I don't know how we're going to do this, Darren, but we need to re-engage the right together. That includes Farage, that includes the Reform Party. We cannot have a Labour government. They will destroy our country.
Andrea, before I bring in the others, I just want to ask you a question of a topic that we've been raising on this very show, which is the rise of religious sectarianism. Now, in parts of the world, some parts very near to where you are right now, that is becoming a real electoral problem for the Labour Party. Do you see this becoming more serious?
Yes, I mean, I don't know if you saw, I tweeted a video yesterday.
Yeah, I did. In Leeds, wasn't it? Was it in Leeds?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there. I had surgeries, but I got sent it from the count. Now, I was told people came in and started flying the Palestinian flag, but it was activists of one of the councillors who won. And there was all cheering and waving the Palestinian flag. And my understanding is today, digging deeper, speaking to people who was at the count, there was a Jewish chap there who was threatened because there was walking around the count quite for a few hours, wrapped in the flags. And I'm sorry, but, we shouldn't have our Jewish community feeling threatened like this.
Yeah. Do you feel threatened as an MP, Andrea?
Well, I mean, the thing is, do I feel threatened as an MP? I think I'd be lying if I said every MP doesn't feel threatened. I mean, look at the email I got just a few weeks ago, which said about my 7-year-old son and the want us to be killed, him and I, by Hamas. So, I've got CCTV on my home, Darren, and I can't say that we MPs, we don't feel uncomfortable and feel threatened. Of course we do. Yeah. But we cannot be silenced by anybody, Darren. This is about sticking up for British values. This is about, there's no tolerance. And it's a two-tier policing system. Why is it right for one group to behave in another way, but not right for another group? I'm sick of it, Darren, and we've got to put a stop to this.
Well, I agree. And Andrea, if there's one thing I know about you, it's that you're not going to be easily silenced. But I want to bring in Albiam and Corner now.
Andrea, you're not the only MP that's recently spoken up about the threats that they face. My friend Steve Baker recently uploaded a video of him being basically harassed on the streets in Buckinghamshire. Do you think it is time now that MPs had 24-hour security following them around all the time?
Sorry, my puppy is chasing. Stop it, girls. Chasing around the room. I think that no, I don't, because the threat's not there constant. And can you imagine that cost of taxpayers' money? I think we need to be more vigilant. I think that Are you OK for 1 second? Can you talk among yourself?
Absolutely. We're going to bring Ben Leo in whilst the puppies play mischievously.
It's not Hamas causing problems, it's the puppy.
It's the puppy, thankfully.
We've all been there with a naughty pet, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to ask Andrea, of course, what MPs are experiencing is awful, and the scenes we've had of, at that count of people... Andrea, you're back with us. Good evening, it's Ben Leo.
Hi,
hope you're well.
Hi, Ben.
Just commenting on that video we saw a bit earlier about the Muslim voters and the candidates screaming Allah Akbar at the counts and so on. It's not nice scenes. However, may I say and ask respectfully and point out respectfully, it's your party who has allowed this to flourish over the last 14 years.
But I also think that I think it's not just our party. This has been going on since Blair's time, and it's institutionalized. It's through every university, it's through every school, it's through every level of public service, and it's now even gone into the private sector now. This fear of speaking out and calling people out if they are a minority group, calling out bad behaviour. So this, I'm afraid, it's been ingrained for the last probably 2 or 3 decades, and it's time to fight back, because this is not on. We cannot have people's signs. We cannot have people being threatened. So I think, unfortunately, it's not just down to one government. This is consecutive governments, and it's now time to be brave and to fight back, actually.
All right.
Benjamin Butterworth here. Nice to talk with you again. In Blackpool South, the by-election, the Tories were almost in 3rd place, only 100 votes ahead of Reform UK. What kind of threat do you think Reform poses to traditional Tory voters? And do you think, looking at that pretty shocking result, that the Tories should have some kind of pact in some seats with Reform UK?
Well, first of all, let's look at the results. It was such a low turnout, and even Labour, if comparing to 2019 figures, even Labour lost 2,000 votes in that election because of the low turnout. Ourselves, the Conservative, we lost 13,000 votes, and Reform only gained 1,000 votes. Clearly, Conservative voters stayed at home. But I think the fact that Reform only gained 1,000 votes and only did around 3,000 votes, I think that it demonstrates that it's highly unlikely that they're going to elect MPs, especially given our first past the post electoral system. But it's certainly going to hand things to Labour. So, I mean, I think even we could be radical. Let's have MPs standing as Conservative and Reform candidates.
Oh, wow!
So you would like?
Well, I stood against Ed Balls, who was the Labour and the Cooperative. Why? We need to be radical, because I want to beat these socialists. I don't want to see Keir Starmer with his fake patriotism in number 10. And I'm angry, and I'm fighting back now, and I'll do whatever it takes now. And I want to see the party and the Prime Minister doing the same.
So looking at what's happened, you think that if Reform probably aren't going to get MPs, you say that, but they might stop Tory MPs being returned. So you think there should be an agreement in those scenarios where that could happen with Reform and the Tories?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not saying the party will do that, but this is just one of my suggestions, one of my many suggestions for what it's worth.
All right.
But why not? We need to unite the right. We've seen the left, and the left is splintered now because of the Muslim vote going elsewhere, or voting for fringe parties. We've seen Galloway this week saying he's going to put a candidate in every seat. It's going to get very dirty, isn't it?
Yeah. Fleur, what would you like to ask Andrea? You've got a question. You're champing at the bit.
Well, we've just been discussing the Stella Creasy's amendment to the Criminal Justice Bill, and they've announced the date for the vote will be the 15th of May. So will you be voting against these extreme measures?
Oh, completely. Oh my gosh, I'm a mother, and I think it's awful. I do think it's murdering a child. I'm sorry, but I do. And to me, I think our British laws are too liberal on abortion. I put it down to 12 weeks. When you have your first scan, you see if the baby's okay. I put it down to 12 weeks personally. I understand it's going to be a free vote, and we can vote with our conscience, and I'll certainly be doing that.
Dame Andrea, one quick question from me again. Ben, have you spoken to Boris in recent days?
I spoke to him last week, and I often exchange.
Not since the results?
No, it's been a mad few days, so I haven't, I'm afraid.
All right, Andrea, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time, giving up your Saturday evening. That's Dame Andrea Jenkins there. Right, now... well, I thought we covered quite a lot of ground there.
She's one of the last few remaining Conservatives in the Conservative Party, and if the party was full of more people like her...
I'm assuming that you were sort of wanting to climb up the wall when she mentioned a pact with Reform.
Do I think the Tories need a pact with reform? No, I don't think the Tories need a pact with reform. But what I think the Conservatives need to do is talk about the record that Rishi Sunak has in a more positive and unifying way, and we need to get behind the Prime Minister and stop all of this silly infighting. Because I think, OK, you have a pact with reform, but then you just irritate all the One Nation Conservatives, and then that might cause as many losses as you will get gains from
the One Nation Conservatives need to leave. They're the problem, not reform.
All right.
Because they're not Conservatives.
But can I just say, there you have someone who was a senior MP in recent times of the Tory party saying that they need to team up with an opposition party. And, I think that's quite a remarkable statement, and it shows the depth of division in the Tory party.
Okie doke, folks. It's time for the latest Great British Giveaway now, and your chance to win the biggest cash prize of the year so far. It's a whopping £20,000. Imagine what you could do with all of that extra cash. Here's how you could win it all.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. But you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come tonight in Bunch of Five, Boris is kicked out of a polling station, and will the Co-op Live Arena ever get up and running? But next, the tedious but necessary business of debunking another crazy Albion and Kona belief will go head-to-head on whether we should legalise cannabis in the Saturday Scrap. You're with the Saturday Five, live on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Rishi Sunak has come out fighting and declared war on what he's called the UK's sick note culture. The country's welfare state bill costs the average taxpayer now £2,000 every single year for every British taxpayer. Astonishing numbers, Catherine, simply mind-bending. 69 billion quid every year now goes on benefits. I paid my tax bill last month. Where did your tax go? I clicked on it. Long-term sickness and benefits is now second only to the NHS on what we spend our tax pound on. This is simply unsustainable.
That's exactly what the Prime Minister said. 69 billion a year on long-term sick and disability benefits, projected to rise to 90 billion by the end of the next Parliament if nothing has done. As he said, it is totally, totally unsustainable. And the message from Rishi Sunak really is, tough love, you're going to take your medicine, it's going to be good for you, you may not like it. Let's have a look at what he had to say earlier.
Everyone with the potential should be supported. And not just to earn, but to contribute and belong. And we must never tolerate barriers that hold people back from making their contribution and from sharing in that sense of self-worth that comes from feeling part of being something bigger than ourselves. And that is why this is a moral mission, and why the value of work is so central to my vision for welfare reform.
Certainly, Rishi Sunak said in the speech, in the period since the pandemic, something has gone wrong. Of course, millions of people had their wages paid by furlough. Now, that was an entirely artificial situation in an exceptional circumstance, but quite a lot of people left the workplace and simply haven't come back.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your comments about tonight's topics. Alex has messaged about our unemployment discussion, and Alex says, ask them what they actually want and not what jobs are available. I imagine a lot of them are saying content creators and actors or whatever, but some will choose sensible ideas. Say that if you come up with something good, I will fund it.
Now, life doesn't work like that. You can't just jump into your chosen profession and then off you go away with the fairies.
I mean, to be fair, Boris Johnson did massively inflate the size of the state, so there's a lot more people who've had random jobs funded.
All right, Alistair says the reasons younger people become lazier is because as technology develops, life becomes easier. So we'll either accept the gradual change or stop all forms of technological development. Do we need to just turn off the plugs of the internet? Is that the answer?
Sounds a bit drastic, I think. I wouldn't want to go back to the dark ages. I like my luxuries in life, I've got to say.
All right. Well, now it's time for this. Yes, it's time for tonight's main event. Ding, 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 go those bells. Albie keeps lining up in these Saturday scraps, but I'm not sure he's actually won one yet. And that's not about to change tonight. As he attempts to justify the legalisation of cannabis, he must be out of his mind, and it must be all that skunk stuff. The smell of it is just enough to put me off, I'll tell you what. Seconds out for round one. Albie, kick us off.
If we think about all of the time that we spend on GB News talking about the problems with crime that we have in this country and the thousands of hours that police have to spend administrating this ridiculous law that criminalises a substance such as cannabis and marijuana, which is smoked around the world in countries like the Netherlands, in countries like the United States of America, where people can go and buy this. It's taxed by the government, regulated by the government, and people can smoke it in the same way that we drink alcohol. But in this country, we have this ridiculous law, which means the police are spending all of these hours, thousands of man-hours, investigating crimes associated with cannabis when they could actually be out there locking up people who are thieving, locking up rapists, locking up murderers, people who cause things like assault. My point is, it is a complete waste of police time to be administrating the law of cannabis being illegal when we know that in countries that we are allies with, that we are culturally similar to, they've legalised cannabis and there have been none of the problems that people like Darren claim that there will be.
Well, I've got absolutely nothing to do with those weed-smoking crazy cyclists in bloody Holland. But I would, going back to that police point that you made, the police in Durham, for example, said years ago that they wouldn't be investigating cannabis-related crimes anymore because, well, they de facto decriminalised it. So I don't think we have actually been policing or enforcing the law when it comes to growing cannabis and actually selling it on the marketplace. Secondly, I think that there are suggestions that this can be a gateway drug. You relax by saying, oh, I'm going to break the law a little bit here. The next minute, you're going on to really quite hard and really sinister drugs. I think this is a stepping stone to madness. I think to do this would be to unleash a torrent of these kinds of calls for decriminalisation of absolutely everything. You know, in Wales, where there are obviously a lot of people who used to work in heavy labour industries, they are perhaps addicted to things like morphine. That leads them to actually go on to things like heroin.
We're talking about
heroin and other hard drugs. This cannabis is a gateway to hard
So is alcohol.
drugs. Alcohol, name me one person that's had a drink and thought, do you know what I really need? Heroin. Drugs are entirely different. Drugs are
No, but I know
gateways
plenty of
to
people
harder
who
drugs.
think after a drink of alcohol that they'll go and do an illegal drug. That is my point. And what I'm saying is, Darren, did you think that Rishi Sunak's smoking ban was a good or a bad idea?
I thought it was a bad idea.
So for the same reasons that you think Rishi Sunak's smoking ban is a bad idea, I think the criminalisation of cannabis is a bad idea, because prohibition has never worked. And the reason that I think people should be free to smoke is because people should have the individual responsibility, the personal autonomy to make decisions about what they put in their bodies.
So let's legalise heroin
whether or not that is a
token.
good thing,
Let's
or
legalise
whether or not
heroin.
that is a bad thing. And that is why I believe that both the smoking ban is wrong and also the cannabis ban is wrong.
So let's legalise heroin.
I'm not saying we should legalise
You just
heroin.
said it should be your
We're
own
talking-
personal
we're
choice,
talking about
freedom to the
cannabis.
max.
Not to the max, but I'm saying if you think that tobacco should be allowed to be smoked, then why not allow something which is actually less harmful than tobacco to be smoked? Cannabis.
Less harmful. The number of people... I've never heard of anyone smoking cigarettes and then saying that they've got mental health disorders
The
thanks to the
argument against-
paranoia of these horrible, smelly, disgusting drugs. The problem with actually banning these things is that it's never actually been tried. I don't agree with you at all that prohibition has been put in place. We've basically de facto decriminalised drugs in this country, in my personal
Do we not have a drugs
opinion.
prohibition in this country?
I'm going to bring in the whole panel now.
Which hasn't worked.
Fleur, where are you at on this?
Well, I do think that there is definitely a difference between weed and heroin. Although Peter Hitchens will talk for hours and hours about how it can cause people to be violent, it can destroy
cannabis?
lives. Yeah.
I've never seen anybody violent on cannabis.
Yet he does drink a lot of alcohol. But I also hate the smell of it. I think it can lead to antisocial behaviour, unproductivity, and it's more sort of the lifestyle that's associated with regular marijuana users that's the problem, as it's not really a dangerous drug.
Benjamin?
I find it interesting. I think the truth is that it's effectively legal already.
Yeah.
Certainly in big cities, you will smell cannabis fairly routinely on the street. People don't feel nervous that a police officer will say something. Evidently, police don't say anything. We know that the chances of you being criminalised for being in possession of cannabis, 6 times as many of those are black compared to white. And so I think the fact that they're maybe more likely to be stopped and searched means that something that, white people are generally getting away with, but black people are finding themselves guilty of.
Cannabis is racist, is it?
Well, the fact that they are stopped and searched means you get far higher prosecutions for when they're found in possession of it. And so, I do think that's an uncomfortable reality of that. But what I find difficult, because and I've written about this before, you talked about heroin. Both my mum and dad were heroin addicts for a very long time when I was growing up. And I know that the answer, my mother has been clean of drugs and of heroin for 10 or 11 years now. And it wasn't people telling her that heroin was wrong that helped her, or that it, should have a harsher criminal punishment. It was people reaching out for her to be able to get the help, to take the steps to recover from the addiction and the mental health problems that led her to that and that result from that. And so, while I think it would be ridiculous to say heroin should be legal, the idea that harsher punishment solves an addiction of that severity is just not true.
We've got stronger drugs than heroin coming onto the market, manufactured in Chinese labs and coming over.
Heroin, we're talking about
I never said we were. I'll be piped down for 1 second, goodness sake. President Biden has said that he is in favour of going down this path for the United States of America. Does that not tell you all you need to know about this terrible policy?
Well, it's a very lefty, wishy-washy, woo-woo approach to things. He's just trying to clean up the younger vote because a lot of young people smoke. Look, I'm quite split on it. I like to think of myself as a libertarian. I think people should really have control of their own lives. However, sorry, by the way, I must make this point. I think the link between cannabis, or the suggestion that cannabis is a gateway drug to heroin, is complete guff. I've never heard anything so stupid in my life.
No, you break the law once, you do it again.
That said, I don't think legalising cannabis would be a good idea because, in my experience, it makes people lazy, demotivated. I don't think generally...
What does alcohol do?
Alcohol?
Does it make people lazy or demotivated?
You don't get absolutely baked for 10 hours sitting on your bed, or I suppose if you're hungover as well. But I don't see much benefit, apart from medicinal purposes, in cannabis. It's very helpful for people with multiple sclerosis, other conditions. It helps people who are terminally ill as well, but it's not one for me.
All right.
So who won?
Well, the viewers will decide that. The viewers can let us know on gbnews.com/your say. Still ahead, Albie will smoke a joint live on air. All your questions will be answered in Ask the Five. And in Bunch of Five, Boris is turned away from a polling station. There's a new dating app that tries to bring back the joy of the phone call. No, don't worry, not like that. And we discuss the latest TikTok sensation. It's none other than the charming North Korean dictator, Kim Jong-un. You're with the Saturday Five live on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours or so, a bit of a north-south split with the weather cloudy and damp in the north, some clear spells leading to sunshine and showers in the south. So it's all thanks to low pressure dominating the weather pattern through the bank holiday weekend. This area of low pressure giving some longer spells of rain perhaps in the south on Monday, but through the rest of the evening and overnight, very slow changes with our weather. It stays cloudy across the northern half of the UK with outbreaks of rain. A few heavier bursts possible. Clearer south, generally dry, some mist and fog patches forming under light winds, and then by the end of the night this weather system moving into the southwest, and as we go through the day on Sunday it just slowly pushes its way northwards, introducing some showery outbreaks of rain. Through the central swathe of the UK it generally stays dry with some sunny spells, cloudier further north, drier though, but there will be a few heavy showers that develop, particularly across northeast Scotland. Temperatures generally in the range of 16 to 18, but locally 19 or 20 in the best of the sunshine. For bank holiday Monday, a bit of a mixed picture, some showery outbreaks of rain possible across southern counties of England. This trying to break up during the day into sunny spells and showers, and that's the forecast for many parts, sunshine and showers, temperatures lifting generally into the high teens once more. Tuesday into Wednesday, high pressure starts to build in, temperatures start to rise.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers. I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. The verdicts are in on my Saturday scrap with Albie. Andrew says, here we go. Darren, you are so far removed from reality, it is unbelievable. Alcohol is the gateway drug for hard drugs, in particular cocaine, which is at pandemic levels. Cannabis needs to be legalised, to be regulated, and is definitely not a gateway drug. Well, listen to me. I drink my fair share of wine, and I tell you what, I've never gone to the bathroom for a line of bloody coke. But Liam says, the young man who wants to legalise cannabis talks tosh. The underbelly of the Netherlands is full of addicts who have fallen by the wayside and whose lives are taken because of the use of cannabis. Now, though, it's time for this. All right, who have we got first?
So I'm first, Darren, and we saw this week, I think, the return of King Charles to public duties for the first time since his since the news about his cancer diagnosis. We also heard that he's taken over some patronages from the late Queen, and I just thought to myself, isn't it such a good thing that we're seeing the King back out and about, and he's doing well enough in order to be fulfilling his role as the head of state? Fleur, what do you think, as an avid royalist, I'm sure?
Oh, yeah, well, royalist, yes, Charles fan,
Oh, here.
You know, the Crown really turned me against him.
Did you realise it's fiction?
Yes. I mean, it's fiction to an extent. We all know he had an affair, and...
Oh, so it's Diana that's poisoned your mind against Charles?
Yes. Also, he is King Charles the Woke, so not the biggest fan of him, but it's great to see him back out and about, just getting better with every day. And although I do think it's great news to hear he's championed 200 new charities, my concern is that he may not have fully researched all of those charities, because a few years ago there was a theatre which Camilla was a patron of, which put on tried to put on a sex show aimed at children, which I campaigned against and got it cancelled. So they need to be much more careful of who they're aligning themselves with.
But he's going to be too busy to meet Prince Harry, apparently, when he comes to London shortly, Ben Leo. What do you think of that?
No, I heard they are meeting. So there's a Buckingham Palace garden party on Wednesday, May the 8th, next Wednesday. The party finishes at 4 p.m. Harry, meanwhile, is at St Paul's Cathedral for an Invictus Games event. That finishes at 6 p.m. And the hope is that they are going to meet that evening. Crucially, though, Prince William, his brother, is away, and Harry won't be meeting cancer-stricken Princess of Wales, Catherine.
So sad.
I would, yeah.
She'll be relieved.
All right.
Probably.
Yes, so this week has seen shows cancelled at the Co-op Live Arena, which was a hideous building built to be the biggest arena in the UK. And shows have been cancelled, including Olivia Rodrigo, who I was supposed to be seeing yesterday. Not happy because my train ticket was non-refundable to Manchester, so lost that money. I bought a really cute outfit. Now I've got nowhere to wear it.
You should have worn it here.
It was a little bit too concert appropriate and not TV appropriate. But this is terrible because it's problems with the air conditioning and heating system. So they had one show which started last week, and people were already in the arena, and the roof started falling apart.
My word.
So, yeah, disappointing, but you can't be too careful, right?
I mean, I think the question is, you'll get a refund for the tickets if you can't attend these concerts. But loads of people have spent, like you said, a hotel, a train ticket. And is it really fair that they don't have to give you a refund when it's clearly a level of negligence with that building?
Yeah, definitely. And it was a £365 million project to build this.
Wow.
So I'm sure they will have the money to spare. I mean, Co-op's a huge supermarket company, so...
So is it actually Co-op, are they just sponsoring the building, or is it them who's constructed it?
They are the name sponsor, so that's it. They just...
Do you know what, Fleur? Sometimes I wish the aircon would fall in on me. And
I know, yeah.
Well, I've had to take my jacket off. I don't know if the viewers have noticed, but I'm absolutely dripping. It's so
because
hot.
you've been watching yourself. Kim Jong-un is someone I want to talk to you about, the North Korean dictator. He's put out... Well, there's a little jingle associated with the North Korean dictator, and it's gone viral on TikTok. It's apparently down with the kids. Let's have a listen. And now, Benjamin, you were very keen on Sir Keir Starmer coming out to that jingle, weren't you? Recording.
Yeah, Kim singing, he's great.
Whilst he's bringing in the migrants on a boat, a little shimmy here and there.
Exactly, as the economy's boosting, everyone will be dancing. Do you know, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because obviously he is a murderous dictator.
Who's Sir Keir Starmer?
No, the ruler of communist North Korea. You know, he's obviously a deplorable human being, a great threat to Britain. And yet you have this communist propaganda video in North Korea going viral with Westerners on TikTok. You know, I think I think, does it show a level of danger about the soft power these things can do?
Yeah, Fleur, I mean, do you think actually we're not raising a generation, surely, of North Korean advocates?
Well, I mean, there has been some data that's come out that TikTok is radicalising young people, young users. And there was a chart which showed you get one pro-Hamas video and then out of the next one, it then becomes the majority. So I think that kind of thing could radicalise people. I think this catchy little ABBA tune, unless you understand Korean, like, surely this can't be doing any harm.
Yeah, I think the horse is bolted, Darren. You're concerned about our kids being radicalised by commies. Just look at our universities; they're all commies.
Well, and I think TikTok would probably say that any videos that endorse terrorism would be taken off the platform.
All right, Ben Leo.
Yes, so something, I mean, the highlight, I think, of the local elections in recent days was the fact that Boris Johnson, the man who introduced legislation to ensure that people had ID on them when they went to the ballot box, he forgot his ID. Of course he did. He was turned away from his local election station, Village Hall, and he was forced to go and bring his ID back before he could put his vote down. So
I think he did it on purpose.
I agree.
I think he did it on purpose. He's written his column in the Daily Mail about it this week. I reckon he wrote the column a few weeks ago. The editors had a look at it, and then he went to the polling station without his ID in order to make a big song and dance about it. So everyone's going to read his column, and the TV shows.
Did you not think the staff?
Well done, Boris.
Do you not think the staff at the polling station were just being Jobsworth? They know it's Boris Johnson. He's the former Prime Minister. How can you not recognise?
No one is above the law.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, of course, Albie excuses Boris Johnson being a blatant idiot and tries to claim he's clever. Look, I think the question is, did Boris forget the rules, or did he, as in Downing Street, think the rules don't apply to him? I strongly suspect it was the latter. I think he thought what Ben Leo said. He thought, oh, I'm so famous, they'll just take me at face value. Well, I'm sorry, mate. As you learn the hard way, I think rules apply to all of us the same.
All right, Benjamin Butterworth.
Well, at least Boris has got a partner, so he's a bit ahead of me in that. There's this new dating app called Haiti or Hattie. It's Indonesian for heart. And now you get all these apps where you have to swipe one way or the other, and people will match with hundreds of potential partners on these apps. So this one says you can't type messages to them. You have to pick up the phone and have a real conversation. A bit like, I don't know, being in a bar or a pub or a workplace. Very old-fashioned. Darren, you've no hope of romance. What do you think?
I think you're right that it's probably more productive than swiping only to match with someone and never speak to them, because you're actually forced to actually engage with people. But I wonder, actually, I read some stats that suggest that younger people are really reluctant to even pick up the phone, as in to call somebody. They're more than happy to text, but if you want someone to call, apparently that brings out panic attacks and all the rest of it. I mean, Fleur, do you get panic attacks when you pick up the phone to call someone?
It's great being the baby of the group.
You are the youngest person here.
Every young people is me. I'm the spokesperson. But yes, I don't think it is that common amongst my peers, but I hate speaking on the phone. I do not pick up unknown numbers. I don't like having to cold call people. And in the article about this dating app said that it's also our generation who don't even ring doorbells, but we text when we're outside. I did this yesterday. But I do think it is nice to have that option for people who do want a more natural start to a relationship, where it's not... You have to carve out the time in your day to speak to someone, to have a conversation, rather than... you're sat on the toilet replying to someone that you've matched with. It's much better.
I'd be worried about... I mean, do you see their picture before you call them? Because I'd be worried about speaking to someone who's got a really attractive or alluring voice, and then you find out when you meet them later they're...
Well, heaven forbid, Ben, that you should be attracted to someone for their personality and not their looks. Do you know, I think Fleur makes a really good point. I hate answering the front door, let alone the phone. I'm always convinced that it's a serial killer or bailiffs. Usually it's just, someone delivering the post. But I do think you've got a big generational swift in that, young people don't literally talk to each other.
All right, still ahead, it's time for you at home to take charge as we tackle your questions in Ask the Five. Nothing is off limits. gbnews.com/your say is the link you need. You're with the Saturday Five, live on GB News.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney. Weekdays from 3 p.m.
SUV drivers in Oxford will face higher parking charges. Proposals tabled by the local Green Party or passed by the City Council. The motion argues that heavier cars like SUVs cause more damage to roads, are more likely to seriously injure or kill pedestrians, and cause more illnesses due to pollution. However, the Alliance of British Drivers has condemned the plan as absolutely outrageous. Well, let's get the thoughts now of the legendary motoring journalist, Quentin Wilson. Quentin, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure. We hear a lot about the war on motorists, this time targeting SUVs because of their weight, and the charges could be astronomical. This idea first started in Paris. Now it's coming to Oxford. Can you tell us a bit about how it would work?
OK, so the idea is that the charges will penalise people who drive heavier SUVs and I guess by implication electric cars, although Oxford Council haven't said exactly what they're going to do with EVs. But this is all based around this notion of SUVs being heavier than passenger cars, therefore wearing out the roads more. Now, there was a study, I've got it here in front of me, from the University of Edinburgh in 2022 that said real-world tests found that overwhelmingly the wear is caused by large vehicles, buses, heavy good vehicles. Road wear from cars and motorcycles is so low that this is immaterial. Now, obviously, driving around a medieval city like Oxford in an SUV isn't the brightest thing in the world to do. But the idea that we should penalise the owners of these cars based on imperfect science that's been read on social media, I think is completely wrong.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News. The People's
Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Now, there's no need for emails here because we're about to answer your questions. Yeah, it's time for this. Right, let's see what you've got.
The money that went on those graphics.
Let's see what you've got for us this week. This is from Jennifer. Jennifer says, "Hi, Albie. Good job clutching at straws with regard to the elections. Why don't the Tories just ditch Rishi and at least give themselves a fighting chance?"
I'm not clutching at straws with the elections. I was just interpreting the elections in an accurate way. It is true to say that the local election results are a lot closer than the national polls would suggest. Do I think we should get rid of Rishi Sunak at this point? No. I think it would be completely bonkers to get rid of Rishi Sunak at this point. I'm not the only person who thinks that. Our colleague Jacob Rees-Mogg also agrees with me. I also thought it was quite notable that Andrea Jenkins earlier on didn't say that we should get rid of Rishi Sunak at this point, even though she's already put her letters in. I think we've all accepted that it's going to be Rishi Sunak leading us into the next general election. We've got to make the best out of this situation. I don't think all is lost.
All right. Does anyone agree with Jennifer?
What, that Albie's clutching at straws? Yeah, I've thought that for more than a year now on this programme. Look, you know, you kind of understand it, right? It's politics. They have to try and spin it. But, you know, if you look at Tees Valley, which is where Ben Houchen was returned, where Rishi Sunak turned up to Lambast, you know, to celebrate a victory, the swing against the Tories there was big enough that they'd lose every parliamentary seat. And it's likely that they got a better result on Thursday than they would in a general election because Ben Houchen is personally popular. So I think, you know, I think we are looking at a Labour majority government.
All right, Mary's up next, and Mary says, "Nice to see you on the show, Fleur, but I'm feeling really ill and down in the dumps, so I need a good box set for tomorrow. Can you help me out?"
Oh, I'm so sorry that you're feeling ill. My absolute favourite series is Brideshead Revisited from the 80s. Evelyn Waugh's my favourite author, and it's just a beautiful but heartbreaking series, so stick that on.
Hopefully she doesn't sob.
What's your favourite, Darren?
More down in the dumps. I probably like the thick of it, you know, not to be too political.
Albie?
Oh, Desperate Housewives, I think.
Right. Next up is this from Justin. Justin says, evening, Ben. Good result. That must be Ben Leo, because it's talking about football. It's certainly not Butterworth. Good result for Arsenal today.
Yes.
Is this the year we end our wait for the title?
Oh, it was such a good game today. The atmosphere was amazing. It was 3-0. I think we deserve the title. I just don't see where Man City are going to drop any points between now and the end of the season. Mate, we're relying on Spurs to do us a favour, and I think they're going to throw it.
Benjamin, we did have one comment that I saw within gbnews.com/you'll see, and one of our viewers asked which charity shop you get your clothes from, your jumpers especially. Someone actually asked if you knit them yourself.
I wish I had that level of skill. No, I do love a chunky jumper. It covers up all the sort of chicken dinners I've had. Oh. And most of my clothes are from Marks and Spencer, because I'm, you know, just a normal guy.
Well, sales in Marks and Spencer have just gone down the gutter, haven't they?
You like a bit of Marks and Spencer?
I do like them. I do like
single-handedly holding them up.
Absolutely. They're shopping their men's retail. It's me.
Let me reveal something to Saturday 5 viewers. Darren is so working class and a man of the people that regularly on a weekly basis he mocks me for shopping at H&M and even Primark.
Well, no, I think
that's
you're
true.
Very
Admit
savvy
it.
You look very savvy with your money.
You look me up and down and you say,
no,
oh, where's that from? I say H&M and he goes,
I think when you're not watching videos of yourself, Ben, you're brilliant in your clothes. Thank you very much to our guests tonight, the brilliant Fleur Meston, and to all of our wonderful viewers. Neil says, who are these 4 imbeciles talking about unemployed, picking up letter? There are 5 of us here, so someone is not an imbecile, I guess. Wonder who. Next up, it's the brilliant Leo Curse with the Saturday Night Showdown even. I'll see you next week.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Over the next 24 hours or so, a bit of a north-south split with the weather cloudy and damp in the north, some clear spells leading to sunshine and showers in the south. So it's all thanks to low pressure dominating the weather pattern through the bank holiday weekend. This area of low pressure giving some longer spells of rain perhaps in the south on Monday, but through the rest of the evening and overnight, very slow changes with our weather. It stays cloudy across the northern half of the UK with outbreaks of rain. A few heavier bursts possible. Clearer south, generally dry, some mist and fog patches forming under light winds, and then by the end of the night this weather system moving into the southwest, and as we go through the day on Sunday it just slowly pushes its way northwards, introducing some showery outbreaks of rain. Through the central swathe of the UK it generally stays dry with some sunny spells, cloudier further north. Drier though, but there will be a few heavy showers that develop, particularly across northeast Scotland. Temperatures generally in the range of 16 to 18, but locally 19 or 20 in the best of the sunshine. For bank holiday Monday, a bit of a mixed picture, some showery outbreaks of rain possible across southern counties of England. This trying to break up during the day into sunny spells and showers, and that's the forecast for many parts, sunshine and showers, temperatures lifting generally into the high teens once more. Tuesday into Wednesday, high pressure starts to build in, temperatures start to rise.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The next Great British Giveaway winner could be you, with a massive £20,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Imagine how you'd react getting that winning call from us.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox and I won the Great British Giveaway. I'd say why not? What is it? The price of a text and £2 to enter. And if I can win it, anybody can win it. And they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there. Coming up in the Saturday Night Showdown, Keir Starmer is celebrating. But is it really all good news for the Labour leader? Muslim voters are deserting his party in droves. And a new Green Party candidate chanted Allah Akbar in Free Palestine and didn't mention recycling once. And Drew Barrymore's simpering over Vice President Kamala Harris will make you cringe so hard you can taste your own underpants. We've got the video of Drew, not your underpants. And we've got the funniest fails of the week, as it all went wrong for fat football medics and this TikTok prankster. This is your Saturday Night Showdown. Discussing all tonight's topics, my brilliant panel joining me tonight are the comedians Francine Lewis, Ellie Probert and Justin Panks. But first, let's get your latest news headlines from Sam Francis.
Leo, thank you very much and good evening from the newsroom. It's just